These are the waiver wire pickups for Week 12. First up is Taysom Hill. The Swiss Army knife was back at it again, turning in what was arguably the best performance of his career, carrying the ball 7 times for 138 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also caught 8 passes for 50 yards and had 18 passing yards for good measure. Now, he did throw 1 interception and lose 1 fumble, but we're not worried about that because his red zone usage makes him a threat to score on any given week. He is already rostered in 54% of leagues, but if you're in a shallower league, he is a top priority. The Saints are on bye next week, so you will have to wait until week 13 to deploy him, but he is still worth adding and holding on to. Number 2 on the list is Jonnu Smith. Talk about stumbling onto a gem. Smith was largely picked up as a bye week fill-in for Trey McBride and Cade Otton, and also as a replacement for Sam Laporta, and he did not disappoint. He ended up catching 6 balls for 101 yards and 2 touchdowns, which ended up being his best performance of the season, and the receiving yards were a career best. While the performance was great, it's actually not that shocking. He's quietly the tight end 8 on the year in PPR leagues, and he's had a very consistent role over the last 6 weeks on this offense, seeing around 7 targets a game and averaging around 62 yards per contest. At this point, I consider him start-worthy as a low-end tight end 1 in most formats. He is now rostered in 54% of leagues, but if you happen to pick him up last week, I would not drop him. Number 3 on the list is Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy had 6 receptions for 142 yards and 1 touchdown. And since Deshaun Watson went down 3 games ago, he's been a different player. That's largely in part to the Browns becoming a lot more pass-happy with Jameis Winston at the helm, but Jeudy looks poised to have a strong finish. Over these last 3 games, he's averaged 6 receptions for 98 yards, and more importantly, he's seen 30 targets. And while there are a lot of mouths to feed in Cleveland between David Njoku, Cedric Tillman, and Elijah Moore, Jeudy should still have a prominent role in this offense. The Browns do face off against Pittsburgh next week, so I'm anticipating a dip in production for all pass catchers in Cleveland. Number 4 on the list is Quenton Johnston. Johnston finished the day with 2 receptions for 48 yards and 1 touchdown, and his score was his 3rd in as many games. He also saw 8 targets, which was a welcome sight given that he's only seen around 4 targets per game this year. But with his height and red zone presence, he's a threat to score any week. At this point, I consider him a WR3 in all formats. He's still behind Ladd McConkey in the pecking order, but he is definitely establishing himself as the number 2 pass catcher on this offense. He is already rostered in 41% of leagues, but if he is somehow available in yours, I would not hesitate to pick him up. Number 5 on the list is Marquez Valdez Scantling. He was already a top priority in my mind last week, but given that he's only rostered in 25% of leagues, I thought it would be good to mention him again. He followed up last week's 3-catch, 109-yard, 2-touchdown performance with another 2 catches for 87 yards and 1 touchdown this week. He's bound to cool off given how low his target volume has been. He's only seen 8 targets across his 3 games as a Saint, but given how much Derek Carr loves to push the ball downfield, he's worth picking up and starting as a boom-bust WR3 with high upside. Number 6 on the list is Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. Ikhine finished today with 2 receptions for 117 yards and 1 touchdown. He has 5 scores on the year, all of which have come over the last 6 games, and he has had a pretty prominent role in this offense since DeAndre Hopkins was traded. He is definitely very touchdown dependent as he's only seen around 4 targets per game this year, but he seems to have a pretty good connection with both Will Levis and Mason Rudolph, giving him some more stability than your typical dart throw. Number 7 on the list is Cam Akers. Cam Akers saw 12 touches today, taking them for 36 yards and 1 touchdown. And this is the 2nd week in a row we've seen this backfield be somewhat split. Last week, Akers saw 14 touches, and some of this may be attributed to the fact that Aaron Jones is dealing with a rib issue, but it definitely seems like the Vikings are trying to make this a more balanced attack. He's only rostered in 17% of leagues, and he is one of the better handcuffs in the league, but in terms of standalone value, I would consider him a low-end RB3. Number 8 on the list is Ray McCloud. Darnell Mooney left today's game with a strained hamstring in the 3rd quarter, allowing McCloud to see an expanded role. He ended up finishing the day with 6 receptions for 46 yards, and if Mooney were to miss any time, McCloud would definitely see an increased workload. Now, Mooney was deemed questionable to return, and they may have held him out because the game was out of hand, and they also have their bye next week, so they figured they might as well cut their losses, but Mooney's the leading receiver on this team, and his production will have to be made up somehow should he miss time. McCloud's only rostered in 17% of leagues, and he's more of a wait-and-see type of player. Number 9 on the list is Roshan Johnson. After vanishing over the last 4 games, Johnson resurfaced today, getting 11 touches for 41 yards and 1 touchdown, and the Bears are in need of a spark after dropping their 4th straight. Johnson will likely have somewhat of a role in this offense, but he will continue to be inefficient. The only thing giving him some type of value are his goal line looks, which he should continue to see. At this point, I'd pick him up as a touchdown or bust option. Number 10 on the list is Willdley. Similar to Jonnu Smith, Dissly was picked up as a bye-week fill-in, and similar to Smith, he did not disappoint. He caught 4 balls for 80 yards and his first touchdown on the year. And he's actually been coming on over his last 5 games, where he's seen around 7 targets per contest. Like I mentioned, this was his first score of the year, so he is a bit capped in that department, but he's still worth picking up as a TE2 with upside in full PPR formats. Those are the waiver wire pickups for week 12. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe and let me know which players you think we should pick up in the comments below.